yeah, and I think this works really pretty nice. All I did was just grind that little section off right there, and I just, while I was at it, I flattened out the bottom, like on the bottom of the bumper too, and I think that'll work. So yeah, I think it, the car will sit on there pretty well, and I can just kind of position it as the glue sits up, and yeah, it ends up looking pretty cool. You end up with a nice looking front. If you're using like a pin drop start gate, this area right here is a nice section, is nice to rest against the pin. And I mean, my start gate isn't that way. My start gate flips up, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so I'm going to mix up a little JB Weld, and again, don't worry, I won't bore you to death with that. I don't really think there's much need to glue the chassis in at this point, because I'll be gluing the chassis, gluing the interior in, rather. I don't think there's any need to glue that in. I mean, if I wanted to, I could put a dollop of JB Weld on that pin right there, and it would hold it pretty nicely in place. So I might do that. But when I glue the chassis on, I'll be using a lot of JB Weld, just all along the both edges and on the bottom, and that's going to be the main thing that holds the body on. So all I'm going to do is take a little bit of JB Weld and run it all along this edge and on this post, and likewise on the back on the post, and yeah, just hopefully get a nice clean glue in on those two parts, and yeah, that's it. Since this is kind of really fiddly work, now one thing I don't know if I've mentioned it through any of the series is I work using magnifiers. I wear like the magnifiers you wear on your head. You can also use a magnifier that's like a light with like a ring light around a magnifying glass. I like the ones that you wear. So I tend to work like right up close to my face, so that might be kind of hard to show, especially since I'm just going to be working in a very small and deliberate way to glue these pieces in. So here again, I'll probably show the final product of gluing the bumpers on, but I'll do that off camera, and then I'll glue the body on in the next section once they're glued in. So let me do that, and I will be back in a bit. And here we have a blurry car. Now, yeah, glued these in. I did put a dollop of JB Weld on that peg right there to hold the interior in, and yeah, everything glued in there really pretty nice, because on both the front and the back I was able to run a fair amount of JB Weld along the pin. That's just kind of good fortune as far as where these guys are riveted in. You can't always do that. But yeah, so now we're just down to two pieces that have to become one. So yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm going to have to really watch with this is as I'm going to put a whole bunch of JB Weld. I'm not sure, I might put a little bit on the weight and then put a whole bunch right in here, and I'll probably just put a little bit on both the front and the back where it rests on these lips here. But the big thing to do when you're doing this stuff is the work time that you have with the JB Weld. So basically, I'll get it, and I have to watch, because it's very easy like as you're holding the car for it to shift, so you can end up with something like this that's binding up on the body. So you have to just be very aware as the JB Weld is hardening up, and once it gets really close to kicking off, you want to just really go, spin the car around and make sure that your wheels are all spinning, that the body stays straight, and yeah, and then you're left with a pretty cool looking car. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a great big pile of JB Weld. Going to smear it on there, and then I don't think it's very good television for for you to stand here, for you to sit and watch me hold this in place. So the big thing will, I'm going to put a whole bunch right in here and on the front and on the back. And when you're dealing with a lot of JB Weld, you want to be very careful not to get any on your wheels, as always. But yeah, in the next video, I will have glued these guys together, and we'll have a finished 66 Nova. So yeah, I will be right back. Okay, and here we have it. We're 3 weeks in, and we have 3 cars with the basics of hot rod modding, or Hot Wheels modding. With this guy, with this Nova, again, I was just very careful. Actually, when the JB Weld was curing, I was basically just holding the car flat, just kept turning it, and I'd spin the wheels, and I was just watching my clearance on the wheel wells, just going around and around the car. And a good tip while you're doing this is to have your pallet of JB Weld right there with your toothpick in it, and that way you can kind of test to see how firm the JB Weld is, to see if it's still setting up, or if you have to, if it's getting really close to kicking, you just look very careful at it to make sure that that everything is right where it needs to be. So what we ended up with is a pretty cool car. I mean, it's it's got all the it still has all the same looks of the original without the tucked wheels. And I'm not a big fan of the tucked wheels on those cars. I just think they look kind of silly. But yeah, so there we go. Yeah, the tension is mounting. Which one's going to be the fast car? What do you think, guys? We have the basic wheel swap in the 55. We have the wheel swap with the axle tubes in the 68 Camaro, and now we've got the chassis swap with the Nova. And as you can see, these guys in the background, that's going to be next week's project. And as far as any comments and stuff on this one, thank you for your guys' support. Yeah, and